I would like to welcome you again and take this opportunity to introduce the members of the panel today. Starting with myself, my name is Nomfundo Maseti. I am the full-time regulator member responsible for the regulation of electricity as well as gas at Nersa, and I'll be chairing today's public hearing. With me today, I am assisted by my colleague, Mr. Fungai Sibanda, who is the part-time member and the member of the electricity subcommittee at Nersa, and he also participates in the decision making on matters such as this one that is before us today. Right, the hearing today is going to focus on the application that was submitted by the city of Tshwane for the tariff increase of an average of 13.07%. And part of that application is the restructuring of the tariffs. And this public hearing was duly publicized or published in the newspapers. And perhaps before I get to that, let me get a person who's going to brief us on evacuation procedures. Okay, as a gentleman, I don't know if they're going to hear you. If you could stand there so that everybody can be able to see you and hear what you are going to say.
Morning, everybody. As I have said, my name is Oscar. I'm going to brief you about the evacuation of the hotel. Okay. Firstly, we've got two assembly points in the hotel. One is inside, one is outside the hotel, opposite to where we are now, Mandela. It's at our parking lot in Mina. We have also got two routes. One is primary route. The primary route is the route that we consider it to be the quickest, the safest to the assembly point. So in case of emergency, we will go out with these two big doors to the one outside and then Minari parking. And then our secondary route is through the passage to the main door, and then we'll go to Minari parking again. So we have also got the ambulances on standby, whereby if something happens, then they'll come and assist us. We do have the medical room. The bathrooms are here on the passage, and some are on the other side of the hotel. You can ask when you go outside. Yeah, so that's it. If there's any question, then you can ask.
All right, thank you very much, Kote.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated, this public hearing was advertised in various newspapers, including Sunday Times, BL, Business Day Star, and it was also put in the Government Gazette. It was also put and posted on the social media, Facebook as well as Twitter accounts of Nersa, and it was also put in our website in accordance with the Energy Regulator Act requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you about the rules that govern this public hearing. This public hearing, really, the purpose of it is to obtain input from various stakeholders, and various stakeholders are expected to provide facts and evidence that will assist the energy regulator in coming to the right decision. So we invite stakeholders to give us information that will assist us to then take a sound decision at the end of the day. And some of the rules that I would like to summarize to you today is the fact that all parties that will be required to make their presentations will be required to do so under oath. And the presenters are allocated 20 minutes each to do their presentations today. If you require additional time, that will be at the discretion of this panel. Please inform the chairperson of the panel should you require additional time so that we can decide whether we'll be able to allocate that time that is requested to you. Please also note that only the members of the panel may ask questions to the presenter. However, if there is a member of the public here or any member of this audience who would like to bring something to the attention of this panel or would like this panel to put a question to the presenter, please write that question on a piece of paper and give that piece of paper to Mr. Eliezer Dlamini, who's standing over there. Mr. Eliezer Dlamini will then bring that piece of paper to us, and then we will decide how to ask that question from the specific presenter. Should presenters feel that there is information that should be treated as confidential in their presentations, please inform me as the chairperson that part of the information that you are going to present is confidential, so that we can have a discussion on whether or not we need to hear that information. Should we decide that we are going to hear the information, we will then clear the room so that we can only have Nersa staff and this panel, as well as the presenter, consent to then present that information. Please also note that this hearing is recorded, and the recording is done through this recording system and the live streaming over there, and it will be the official record of this gathering. Please switch off all your cell phones, or please put them on silent so that they don't interrupt the proceedings. And please note that the members of or the staff from Nersa, some of the staff members are sitting outside, some of them are here in the audience, and will assist you where we are going to have tea as well as lunch. We've already done the evacuation procedures, and today we have received about, I thought it was 9 yesterday, the number has increased. We've got 13 or 12 presenters today. So we are going to have a presentation from the applicant, as we normally do. We'll start with the applicant, which is the city of Tshwane, to come forward and give us your presentation. And I have the name of Ndwamato Mochiza from the city of Tshwane municipality to do the presentation. We have Ndwamato. Who is Ndwamato? Okay, would you please raise your right hand? Do you have any objections in taking the oath?
No, I have no objection.
All right. Do you solemnly declare that the facts you are going to present before this panel today is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and your designation at the city of Tshwane for the record.
For the record, Chairperson, my name is Tom Ndwamato Mochiza, the divisional head for energy business in the city of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality.
All right, please, you may start with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. We meet at this very complex, difficult time wherein in our society, electricity continues to be one of the thorny issues. The issue we're going to talk about, Chair, is that we're going to indicate that in terms of the law, we've done what the city of Tshwane would have done to the regulator. For the regulator to make its we use to try to move out, to try to make it easier for our customers to be treated more fairly, as the complaint is being about your tariffs keep on becoming too steep as we continue. We are to do this balancing act, Chair, to ensure that our prices becomes affordable. As councils, we look into the viability of what is we are faced with. Whether does our price path reflect a fair and efficient cost of supply and distribute to end users? And will the price path maintain the ongoing viability of ourselves? And then we look into what are the other economic factors that, as the capital city and the global factor that we have to consider. In terms of cost of doing business in our city, in terms of businesses not being worse off, so that then issues relating to social. Of course, we're guided by yourself, Chair, on driving these levers. Informed by your first draft consultation paper that you gave to ourselves to say we must comment by the 12th of April, which by then already it was outside of the legislative framework, because we're supposed to have get that to ourselves before the end of March. Therefore, I'm just showing you that no, when we arrive at the 15%, 13.07%, we're guided by what the draft process provide to ourselves in that fashion. Now, the city budget is a process, as I said, but we have to be able to table budget in terms of what the legislature provides. And that's our argument, that we're in this quagmire today because somebody choose not to follow what the law provides for. And this is why we're very much in a different stage, because we need to be provide our customers with stability. We went in August last year, 2018, and develop our framework for IDP and budget in terms of what processes we're going to follow to meet the requirement of the MFME. We then, as we continue, we then draft our IDP, we show all the stuff. What is the funding process we're going to do that? What is the ingredients from energy point of view and other drivers that are there in the services that we do? That process, we did it. Ideally, as I said, because we are also partners, because you also reside here, ideally with Nersa should have issued us with those guidelines on 15th of March. But you will know that you failed. And therefore it compromises the cities to comply with MFMA section 43 in terms of budget. Therefore we have to plan our own way this way. Last.
Mochitsa.
Yes.
It is Nersa now who's holding this hearing to hear you.
Yes.
We want to hear you clearly,
Yes.
with a language that is appropriate, so that we can have a fruitful engagement. So if you could please mind your language and stop accusing Nersa of having failed to do anything. That is a matter of evidence that can be put forward later. But proceed with your presentation.
No, thanks, Chair. The intention has never been was just to demonstrate with the both in our other capacity in the AME or Association of Municipalities to Utilities, which have to do a benchmark against our peers and look into what is the changes that are happening in the industry as a sector, and then be able to say, no, fine. All of us who are, as a sector, we want to move away from the full 4 IBT towards a non-IBT, and that's why we introduced the 2 IBT aspects in that. And then we then add domestic charges and fixed charges to domestic customers. And then we also look into the fixed charges for according to capacity added to bulk domestic scales. And then we introduce what we call seasonal tariffs. And this was done after we realized, and also on the basis of benchmarking, that our peer ESCOM that has got almost the same, and our other peers in metros almost the same. Therefore, we then said no, because we also feel the impact of seasonal tariffs from ESCOM, rather than be able to ensure that our tariffs are aligned to the seasons in that fashion. As I said, the proposed tariffs when we went for public consultations. We table our budget and tariffs for consultation on 28th of March to 30 April, and consultation took place on 13 to 16, and it was followed by stakeholder summit on the 30th of April 2019. Well, this deal with whether we consulted with our tariffs and our budget which include tariffs, which is why I was trying to demonstrate that fashion. Now, Chair, the estimated service charges for where we're sitting that our tariff, based on our guidelines, that we will be able to ensure that we account for 13.4 billion of the 2020 on the 2019-20 financial year, which represent 12% compared to the 2018-19 adjustment budget in that fashion. And that's why you hear the Mayor in his speech or State of the Capital Address, he talk about the 12% compared to the adjustment budget in that fashion. And there's no provision that we made for capital expansion projects in our process, and they will make a provision for ensure that there's a cross subsidy across the customer categories. And as I said, there's also the impact on the tariffs. What is the tariffs impact? As I said, that we've provided for block 1, that is 0 to, or you can say 1 to 650 kilowatt hour, with low demand, high demand, and average price that we put when we have considered everything, and for low season and for high demand season that fashion. And a fixed charge that approved by council, that say we must submit to the regulator of 56 rand per month for any point of supply, so that we can then be able to maintain the supply network to that customer. We then, in the process, because we realized that if we are then to introduce that two block tariff, they will still have about 110,000 indigent and lifeline customers. Hence, we have to create a tariff specifically for the indigent or the poorest of poor lifeline customers, which in terms of our council, when apply our mind, we even look into the value of a property that allows somebody to become lifeline and the other one become an indigent. And then we propose, in that case, then there's only a flat prices that are proposed for block 0 to 650, and for block 2, which is about 650 for those. But we know by the time when it becomes in block 2, you already will have identified that you no longer belong to that lifeline. You must then go back to the standard domestic customers, which you have got to be dealt with in terms of what the prices no longer be about flat. But these ones, if they are in this category, these are customers that are GP, all the stuff, they will not be able to change in terms of what they do in that aspect. We then also introduce what I call fixed charges for agricultural. After public consultation, Chair, it was we then come back and then realize that the initial was 610 fixed charge. Then we reduce it down to 250, but we play with the energy consumption for the agricultural holdings and farmlands. Because it checked the city, in fact, it cost the city almost 893 to maintain the network to a rural farm. But we have to take a pay to try to say it's going to be steep. Rather gradually over a longer period, which I talk about the ability to, as a utility, to say to the customer, over the next decades, we plan to do 1, 2, 3. So then all of us don't feel the price shock that we could have feel as such. In conclusion, Chair, to this end, we will say we are awaiting your decisions in terms of implementation. And I will tell you why we said 15. We've tried to squeeze the bidding processes. And therefore, we have said, no, if we get a decision signed by the 15th, because the system must then be able to be clocked. In that aspect, those who are in the prepaid current, it's all charged at 56 rand. When we want to revert it back, after 15 days, it becomes a very messy aspect, and that's what we said in that one. And we're looking forward to your determination. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mshiza, for the presentation. If you have a piece of paper with you and a pen, there might be questions of clarity from the members of the panel. I'm going to ask Mr. Sibanda to start with the questions. Unfortunately, we did not receive your presentation in time so that we're able to make reference to the parts of your presentation, and I'm hoping that the colleagues would try to email in the meantime so that we can make reference and try and understand certain aspects of the presentation, as we don't even have the hard copies. I'm not sure if you sent that presentation in time. Can we get at least soft copy of the presentation in the meantime? And Mr. Smanda will then ask questions. Mr. Smanda.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Mr. Mshiza. So, at the beginning of your presentation, you outlined the provisions of the electricity pricing policy and the cornerstones in terms of the principles surrounding the tariff and all of that. But one of the issues, obviously, that is required of a licensee, and this stems from your application that actually introduces certain structural changes to the tariff. But one of the requirements of the electricity pricing policy is that you need to base that on a cost of supply study. Can you just indicate to the regulator whether the city undertook such a study and whether you actually did provide that to the regulator to justify the structural changes that you are proposing to your tariff? And then one of the challenges that we also had when looking at your application was actually to determine exactly what is it that you were applying for in terms of especially when you look at the new charges that you are introducing, the basic charges to your domestic customers, the resellers, as well as the agricultural customers. Can you just maybe briefly indicate to us how that process unfolded? When you say you consulted widely, what figures did you consult on to start with? And I'm talking about the basic charges, the new basic charges that you are introducing. What figures did you consult on? What is it that you took to council? And what is it that you then applied for from Nersa? Because we had that challenge in trying to reconcile these different figures that you had. So maybe if you can just clarify briefly, what is it that you took to the public, what is it that you took to council, and what is it that you brought to Nersa, and by when? If you can maybe just assist us with that. Yeah, and then obviously you and I'm not sure, Chair, whether this is the right platform, but maybe just to get your view, you spoke about the conflict in the law, right? And maybe if you could assist us to say, do you have an opinion that sort of like supports your view that in the event of a conflict in the law, then your law, whether it be the Municipal Finance Management Act or the Municipal Systems Act or any other, law then tax precedence. And then we also want to find out what tariff did you implement on the 1st of July, and for what reason? If you did not receive approval from the authority or from Nersa, and did you approach the regulator to say, we are in a dilemma here, we don't have an approved tariff from the regulator, what then should we be doing? Or did you simply go ahead and implement that particular tariff without approval? Maybe if you can just assist us with that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. May I just add some few questions? I think Mr. Sibanda already put the question, and really what we want to clarify here is on the view that you stated about what you regard as primary legislation. Because the municipality operates in a regulated space, it's a regulated industry. So in this case, you've got your MFMA, and you also have the Electricity Regulations Act of 2002, which clearly puts the mandate for setting of prices solely as a mandate of Nersa, and that all licensees in this case, any distributor of electricity, including the municipality, for it to distribute electricity, it must get a right to do so. It must get a license to do so. So if in your duty, where we granted you the right and the opportunity to distribute electricity, that right was then granted together with certain obligations, which are the conditions of license. And one of the conditions of license is that the distributor or the licensee, which is the municipality, will then have to charge a tariff that is approved by Nersa. And this part for me is critical. Then in the clarification that we require from you, when you talk about one legislation that takes precedence over the other, I want to see that specific provisions of the law, if it exists, perhaps in the legislation that you make reference to, and how does it then deal with the sole and exclusive mandate of the regulator that sets and approves the tariff. I think I would like you to clarify that part carefully. That primary legislation that you view as a primary legislation, and the other legislation that gives an exclusive mandate to Nersa when it comes to any cost, rates, tariffs, prices, or cost of service of electricity as a distributor, as to how does it get subjected to any other law in South Africa if that's an exclusive right of Nersa. If you can clarify that. And then coming to Mr. Sibanda asked the question, there's just one part that perhaps he did not ask on the issue of introduction of these fixed charges or basic charges. Is the rationale for the introduction of those fixed charges, and he asked about cost of supply, so that we can have an appreciation of what cost does the municipality seeks to recover by introducing the fixed charges or basic charges and the other charges. So what are those costs? Because we haven't had the benefit of the cost of supply that the EPP is calling for. Now, still on the fixed charges, surely customers would like to know, and some of the members of the audience here, and they put the question, whether the fixed charge is going to be implemented on a monthly basis, or is it a once-off? Because it's a new thing, they don't understand also how it came about, what cost you are trying to recover. The cost has not been demonstrated, so that they can have an appreciation of whether or not they impact on those costs. What is the frequency of that charge? I'm hoping that you've got colleagues here that are going to assist you, because we really expect the applicant to provide adequate responses and clear responses. So if you could take the questions down. And then the other question is, does the owner or a tenant of a flat building where the flat's value is less than 150,000 also qualify for the lifeline tariff? I hope you got the essence of the question. If not, you can just indicate, then I can repeat it for you. Okay. You mentioned earlier on that when we were trying to emphasize a point, trying to say that you incur significant cost to supply a farmer in the rural areas. I'm not sure if they know what cost you incur or your cost of supply to the farmer. I'm not sure if the farmers themselves are aware what cost you incur, so that they can appreciate and understand why you want to recover a particular cost and what that cost or what level that cost ought to be, whether it is reasonable or not reasonable, because it affects them. So I'm not sure if you have the cost structures that way. If you talk about issues of transparency in your presentation and predictability, whether that information on the cost of supply or your cost of supplying to a rural farmer were tabled to them and you have explained to them so that they can understand on the agricultural tariffs that the charge of 250 is a reasonable charge, and how often are they supposed to pay that charge, and also the other charges, the energy charges that you have put to them, so that you can demonstrate what is it that you are seeking to recover out of those charges, as we talk about significant cost associated with maintenance of the network that supplies the agricultural customers. Maybe we can leave it at this. I will have a second round. Questions keep coming. I hope that you've got a colleague somewhere there. I haven't even read the questions. I'm still dealing with my questions here. Now, again, the issue of the seasonal tariffs, I would like to hear the reaction of customers with regards to, but I did not even appoint you to come bring questions here because I don't know you. I asked Mr. Eliezer Kamil to bring the questions. So I just want to understand what was the reaction of the of customers with the introduction of this, because sometimes you introduce basic charges or fixed charges. At the same time, the IBT is in 2 blocks. At the same time, the seasonal tariffs. All of these things all at the same time. And you understand exactly the provisions of the electricity pricing policy. If there are such significant or major changes in the cost structures, the municipality must supply the cost of supply status so that we can understand where these things come from. And the regulator in this case is at a disadvantage. Hence we're asking these questions. Can we respond to that first round of questions? We'll get to the second round. Thank you.
President, thanks. I think just to follow up on the same scenario, I have got a range of my principals here, my acting city managers here, my COO is here, my group head is here, and my tariff teams are here. So all of them
they must come up right now so that they can take the oath there, and then so that it will be easier then to spread the questions. Can they come up, please? They were supposed to have done so, or you should have indicated that you will be assisted by your colleagues. If they can all come up, those that are going to assist in the nature of the questions that have been put forward. I don't expect the whole group, but if you can have 2 or 3 people that will assist you. All right, you don't say anything there because it's going to be recorded and it will be ascribed to the city of Tshwane. Can we have one of your colleagues to step forward to take the oath? Good morning, ma'am. Please, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the facts that you are going to provide before this panel today is the truth, or the truth and the whole truth?
I do declare.
Please state your name and your designation at the city.
My name is Laurette Trudeau. At the moment, I'm the acting city manager for the city of Tshwane, and my actual position is governance and support officer at the city of Tshwane.
Okay. All right, can we have the second one? Please raise your, good morning, Butch.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the facts that you are going to provide before this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Please state your name and your designation at the city of Tshwane for the record.
Stevens Matwani is my name. I am the group head for the Utility Service Department in the city of Tshwane. I am responsible for water, sanitation, energy, and electricity.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next one? Morning, Sisi. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the facts you're going to provide before this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name and your designation for the record.
My name is Nersa from City of Tshwane, the divisional head for budget office.
Okay, thank you, Tariff. Good morning.
Morning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the facts you're going to provide before this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name and your designation at the city of Tshwane.
My name is Ndiwo Litole. I'm the
What's the first name?
Ndiwo Litole,
Okay.
Deputy Director for Tariffs and Revenue Protection.
All right. All right, please then can you start, Mr. Muchita? Start with your questions, and then as you finish the ones that you are going to respond to, get somebody else to tackle another question. In the meantime, they can share the questions, those that are behind you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Question. I think the first, as we said, I think the soft copy the team will provide to you. And for this one, put it relating to pricing policy as the requirements of the RCT relating to cost of supply study, whether it was done and what informed these structural changes that as such. The City of Tshwane did their cost of supply study in 2014, submitted the draft to the regulator. When it was never finalized because of other changes that has to happen. Were also going back to recast some of the aspects and principles that are there in the cost study, because that was limiting up to 2019-20. We need to look beyond as we move forward. We'll provide that evidence to yourself. That indicated that in true sense there are a number of customer categories that if I were to follow that cost of supply study, it means that my tariffs will be far ahead of anyone else in the housing province. Hence, we then went and do a benchmarking exercise with Ekuruleni and City Power under the guidance of the AMU to then check what is the drivers of our different cost components so that we can then be able to align that aspect. That was done also to ensure that we have got they have got regulations of National Treasury. Circular 88 impose performance indicators that are required from all 8 plus 9 that report directly to National Treasury, not the one that report to provincial treasuries. And that's the condition that make us to then say, if that's how we're going to be compared, you know, they don't try to compare April with April. Therefore, that's why the structures, most of them, will have to become more or less closer. But we can provide that also to you as an update to that aspect check.
Okay. So there's a follow-up. We want the question to be very clear. You are talking about a draft cost of supply. The question, and would like you to respond clearly. You're bringing an application now in 2019, and you're talking about a draft that you had in 2014. And that draft, as you say, it's just a draft and nothing, else. So, and you are still saying that you were working on it and you did other benchmarks with other municipalities. So we want to understand exactly, because when they talk, when the EPP talks about your cost of supply, we seek to understand what is your cost, what are the costs that you incur, not somebody else, not your competitor, but you incur to supply a customer, so that we can have an appreciation of what you have applied before Nersa. And if you can stop doing the gestures, Budi, and just be still and just listen to the question, so that you can assist us in understanding this. Mr. Spanda has a follow-up question, and I think your colleagues must also take note of this question, so that we'll be able to move forward. Mr. Spanda.
Yeah, Chair, it's exactly along the lines that you have outlined. Maybe just to read the requirements of the EPP. And this is 8.1. It says electricity distributors shall undertake cost of supply studies at least every 5 years, but at least when significant licensee structure changes occur, such as customer base, relationships between cost components and sales volumes. This must be done according to approved Nersa standard to reflect the changing costs and customer behavior. Now, in your application, you have indicated that there are certain changes in your customer base and customer behavior, actually. But now, how do you propose that as a regulator we make a decision when we don't have the underlying evidence, when we don't have the underlying cost of supply study? How do you propose that we as a regulator should take a decision on this particular matter? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. It's twofold. One, I agree that we're not considering other municipalities, we consider this licensee. And the requirement states as such. But also to put the onus on the regulator to ensure that the regulations are in place to ensure that we're able to comply. As we speak currently, in the consultation that we have with the regulator, as the association body now, and the affected municipalities, these are some of the issues that are outstanding. Part of what the regulator even wrote to ourselves, all of us, was that you guys must then start to factor in the cost. If you want to do a cost of supply study, tell us how much it will cost, so that we can then be able to consider new tariffs. We have not done that to like I said, to them now. And hence, I said, we use the information that we have to inform what need to be our changes in the structure, which we've done that, but we then submit it to the regulator for the regulator to make a determination on the basis of information at our disposal. But I think the other aspects that my colleagues will be able to add relating to that changes. When we went to an energy summit in Salga, in National, one of the issues was to agree that the wires business is a dead business. And then we mandate our engagement, Salga, Nersa, AMU, to engage in terms of what needs to be done.
Okay, now I'm going to cut you short. All that we're asking, and I said to you, and I've appealed to you, please stick to the question. And I'm now going to stick to the line of the question as required by policy and by law. The question now is, because now I have to change the question. Did you supply the cost of study to Nersa together with your application, because the policy requires of the distributor to then, if they are going to change the tariff structures, that the application to the regulator must be accompanied by the cost of study if there's going to be significant tariff changes. Did you submit that, yes or no?
We didn't submit.
It with the other questions.
The rationale for the introductions of fixed charges We went to, as I said, we went to consult with the public for domestic at 56 rand. We submit to the regulator initially 120. We went back to council ratified it and said no, the consultation was at 56 rand. Therefore you must send 56 rand back to the regulator. On the industrial, on the agricultural side, we consulted on 610 rand fixed charge. We went to, we submitted 250 as a basis of what council ratified on the 27th of June in that aspect, which then, as opposed to what we submitted to the regulator on the 21st of June, based on the original tariff update that we did following your guidelines. We did this, Chair, informed by the regulator undertook an audit of the City of Tshwane's SLSNC last year. Give us even the timelines of what we must do in this financial year. Some of them we wanted to push them in the last financial year. We said we can only do it in the new financial year because we're in the budgeting process. We need to factor in what you want us to do. Therefore, part of the issues was for us to deal with some of the network deficiencies that the regulator itself in its own audit found that we must be able to address, and that's why we had to bring those fixed charges across and ensure that we bring the seasonal tariffs to ensure that we're able to meet what our needs are to meet the regulators' view.
Okay, Mr. Mchisa, just on those things that you were talking about, the fixed charges, the seasonal charges, the tariffs and all that. Remember, those are new and some major changes, right? And the question I've already put earlier on, whether we have a cost of study that must then substantiate that when you bring it to the regulator to consider. Now you said you didn't submit. What do you expect Nersa then to handle your application that entails these major tariff structures that are not supported by the cost of study as called for in the policy? How do you expect Nersa to handle or treat those aspects of your application without what is required by the policy? That's the first question. And then the second question is how the municipality is going to remedy the fact that its application then appears to be incomplete as it does not comply with this specific provision of the pricing policy. Remember, I've already put the question, you said it didn't supply. So now that it doesn't comply or adhere to that specific provision of the policy, how is the municipality intend to then remedy that situation, and also expect Nersa then to treat those aspects of the application? I think it's a fair question that we must put to the municipality to hear how the municipality is going to respond and what suggestions the municipality has.
Thanks, Chair. First, the seasonal tariffs only on domestic are new. All of other customer categories, all our tariffs had seasonal tariffs. All we're doing that, we are not going to penalize only one component for the demand that we're dealing with that. And so we said, if ESCOM charge me on seasonal tariffs, why can't I pass through? Because you have given me 74% of my tariffs is to pay for ESCOM. And that's the point, that's the big rationale why we said we need to be able to ensure that we're aligned. That was for alignment. Because in May, June, I suffer as the city in terms of the bulk purchase that I buy from that as well.
My question is, and I said correct your language, my question, and I'm putting to you as an opportunity for the municipality, please bear in mind that be mindful that you are representing a municipality and you're talking to the regulator. The regulator is simply giving you an opportunity, and it says, what remedy would you then propose given the fact that you did not give us that information? Now, your line of answering cannot be that you are not going to punish us for this one because this one, ESCOM has done this. What are you proposing that we can do with this situation? What is it that you are going to present to the regulator to remedy this?
Chair, the intention, as I said, is not that we're comparing ourselves with what ESCOM. All I'm stating which affects that your formula gave me 74% of everything goes to ESCOM. And that's what I'm saying. If that's the case, it means that the person who's driving my tariff structure and its proposals must be able to link to that. And that's why we said, what will then be able to do to remedy, as you said, the flaws that we already had the seasonal tariffs on the time of use and other things that are there in our tariff categories. On only these two, we leave it up to the regulator to make a determination. Because we've submitted to ourselves according to how we want to recover the cost that inform that our budget remain balanced in that aspect. But if I say I'm going to do something differently, unless I'm saying you can come and add to the question.
Can I also indicate that from a domestic point of view, when we look at the tariffs charges, we compared from a finance point of view just to check the impact on the customer on the tariffs. Also to check that the tariffs are affordable to the customer and the customer is not impacted. So if you look at what we used to charge for domestic, for example, if you used to pay 120, we made sure that we stay within the 13.07 guideline. So the split between the fixed charge as well as the seasonal tariff from July up until September, you will be charged a particular rate. That rate then reduces it from September until December or so. So if you look at that, we have not actually increased above the guideline of 13.07. So in fact, I must indicate that the impact on the customer, depending on the units that you buy, it's actually less than that of the guidelines that has been provided.
You are now really interrupting the proceedings. We don't expect any whistling inside the room. So we are actually trying to avoid these kind of sounds, the whistling inside the room. So if you can just put the phone on silent, all of you please. Saying, I'm not sure if Mr. Muchiza was trying to see if you are going to also touch on that question. Because at issue here, maybe we're not understanding each other, and I was trying to assist as much as I can to say that then if you don't have certain justification for the cost structures, or you haven't put forward to us your cost structures that necessitated the change in your tariff structures. Remember, that is not there as to how we don't have that info. So now it appears your application is incomplete. Hence, I'm asking about the remedy, because then you've got major changes and the policy says help the regulator to understand the reason for those major changes. And it is very clear that then you do not have that, or at least you didn't give the regulator that information to understand the changes in your tariff structures and how you got to that. If you could answer that question, and then we move forward. If then you don't want to answer it and you say we must just, like you say, we must just decide with this incomplete information, then that is fine.
Chairperson, when we talk about the remedy, we looked at it from our side to say whatever the department, the utility services is introducing out there to the customer. I understand that they don't have, at this point in time, they did not submit the cost of study. But what we are saying is that from our side, we can comfortably say, if you look at the bill of the customer itself is not impacted. So the issue is that the tariff that the customer was, the charge that the customer was paying